How's it going?
Good. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you so much. Appreciate it, man.
Yeah, sorry having to do the late thing, but I really needed some sleep. I
No
ended
worries.
up getting 9 hours, so I feel like a new man.
Oh yeah, that makes all the difference in the world. I got a 1 year old, so I've been like
Ooh.
I'm getting there. I'm almost to the point of getting normal sleep again.
I play crypto and I was in big last week, and so I just wasn't sleeping well. But I finally sold out and made
Yeah.
150 G's, so
Nice.
I'm chilling now, and I finally got some sleep, but it was not letting me sleep real well. So
I got a couple of clients, yeah, who are like they have their sets, to sell at certain points, and they're
yeah.
like freaking out if they're doing it too early because it's so crazy to know what's going to happen. I
I
I got out and
mean,
sold a
I
long
got
time
out
ago.
150K. I was up 205. You're never going to time the tight.
Yeah,
I was like, oh, it's going to keep running. It didn't. And then I was down 55, not down, but lost
yeah,
55 of my unrealized gain. I was like, I just got to get out.
yeah, exactly.
Last night, I finally slept for 9 hours.
Awesome. Well, appreciate it so much. I've been
Yeah, man.
following you. I mean, I was trying to think about when I first saw you because I remember hearing you on the old Geared Up, which was an amazing
Yeah.
old school podcast. But I knew you before then. It must have been on the forums. Were you a big forum
Yes.
guy?
I
Okay,
was a
yeah.
huge forum guy.
Yeah, so it's been kind of cool to
Business.
see you go from like, just where you started being really, prep coach. And I think
Yep.
you were always pretty successful, but to see you grow to where you are now and do the whole integrative health and functional diet stuff, it's been really cool to see you evolve.
Yeah, I think every success in life's a little bit of luck too, with hard work. And I got in early. There was only a few guys really doing it when I got in. I know there was Skip Hill, there was Justin with Troponin, and there wasn't a whole lot of guys. So I got lucky that way. So yeah, I always had a nice stream of clients, but once I moved over to functional, it really opened it up for me because as more and more bodybuilding coaches came in, there was just less clients for everyone. And I saw that writing on the wall around 2017 and kind of expanded my education.
I always really liked your approach with women too. I mean, I think you always had really good success with guys, but I feel like this, like for whatever reason, with women, your results stood out a little bit
Yeah.
more than other clients. And is that kind of like what helped lead you towards this direction?
Yeah, it was 100%. I started noticing when you worked with women that you could have done what you thought was right in terms of prep, refeeding them and, pulling back when, biofeedback was off. But I was noticing that about 50% of them, the next prep, even though you fed them up in the off season, they would struggle to lose weight. And you would have to either add more shit that you didn't want to add or crank on them harder with cardio, less food. And it just seemed to be a progression. And I'm like, to the point where then they just be out of the sport. And I'm like, there's got to be something here. And that's when I looked to broaden my horizons on the functional side.
So, maybe you can define like what exactly is like functional nutrition or integrative health or whatever the kind
Sure.
of.
It's a
I,
good
I really like
question.
I really like your tagline where you said, what is it? You're blending functional health with aesthetics. I think that's a really good
Correct.
line.
Yeah. But like what functional nutrition really does is we look at the root cause of what's going on. That's the simplest way to put it. You're looking for root cause issues that are preventing the aesthetic result or the fat loss, whatever, the goal is, or even the muscle gain. Why is this stubborn? Why is this not working like it did prior? And then we go in and try to find that root cause and fix it. That's generally what functional nutrition does.
So, what are some of the main like root causes you see with
Yeah.
women and with men if they're similar or if they're
Sure.
different?
As we know, anyone who does this work, you're going to be working more with 80% women by doing functional nutrition because men's bodies are just more resilient. And no one get mad at me. It's just the truth. And so I think we handle stress a little better. You take a man who's stressed and not sleeping well, I can usually still get some fat off of him. You take a woman who's stressed and not sleeping well, good luck. Good luck. And then what you do is you got to do more. What's the coach do? Less food, more cardio. Well, that makes it even worse. But a lot of the things that cause issues, in my opinion, is inflammation is big and stress, and then the hormones tank. And when hormones tank in women, when their estrogen starts to tank, inflammation really skyrockets. That's why women have more autoimmune conditions than men, because when their estrogen falls, that immune system kicks in big time and inflammation goes crazy. We don't have those estrogen swings. So women are just more prone, and it's hormone, stress, inflammation. Take your pick. What came first, chicken and the egg? But usually it's, under eating and overworking, or they've got a lot of stress in their lives and they were under eating for whatever reason. Maybe the stress was his job, but most of my people, the stress was just doing more and eating less every year to try to maintain a body. And all they're doing is hollowing themselves out, pulling muscle off, and lowering their BMR over time.
Is that pretty similar with the guys, or just to a lesser degree?
It's just way lesser degree. I mean, so case in point, I got a divorce in 2020. I had to move my house, buy a new house. And during that time, I said, you know what? I'm just going to diet. I'm so busy. I don't even want food. I, I got ready for the Tampa Pro Open in 4 weeks, and I got sixth place. Probably most females' bodies wouldn't have probably done that, but men just, and I know my cortisol was up because I took it not far after. It was a 28. So, you got 28 on most women. You're probably not getting much fat off of them, and they're probably getting belly fat and things, but it's just kind of how it rolls. So yeah, men just seem to be a little bit more resilient. I think I've had probably 3 men who truly have weight loss resistance, and I get women all the time who just body will not work anymore.
Is it age related? Is it more like peri or postmenopausal, or it doesn't really matter
It's
as
it's
much?
more of inflammation. If you have inflammation and stress, it could be a 30-year-old woman, and she's over dieted, done way too many shows, didn't take the right time off, and they've got it. I do get a lot of menopausal women, but that's more inflammaging. It's the age, it's all the stress. They might even have been someone who trained hard, but all the stress of kids, life, bills, all that adds up. And then when that hormone drops out, remember when estrogen starts to drop out, boom, inflammation goes up. I really think in a few years, they'll probably associate menopause closer with an autoimmune condition because it's very, very close. A lot of the symptoms are very similar. So if you treat it more like an autoimmune condition, you can get a better result.
And so, are you looking at like specific blood tests that are a little unique from someone else, or how do you kind of find out what the root of the problem
Assess.
is?
Yeah, so I have a panel that I've created over time that shows the things that I need. And most of them, a lot of things on there doctors probably aren't going to look at. So, I definitely look at a full thyroid panel, which most medical community looks at TSH and T4, which is a travesty. I'll be looking at free T3, which is what fuels the metabolism. I'll be looking at your thyroid antibodies to see if you have Hashimoto's, which I find a lot in women, and they had no idea. We'll be looking at reverse T3, which tells me, are you inflamed? If it's above 16, there's a lot of inflammation going on. And I'll look at fasted insulin. Glucose, it doesn't really tell you much. Like fasted glucose, great. Like, it can be high because of a little cortisol issue. I need to know how you're processing food. And that fasted insulin is what tells me that. Even A1C doesn't give me the full picture. I need that fasted insulin. So I look at all 3 markers. Medical community is not doing that. I pull CRP. That's going to tell me internal inflammation. How is it? Looking at iron. If that's off, that can be signs of inflammation. So there's just a lot. I pull cortisol. And now serum isn't as accurate, but at least while we're doing it, it gives me an idea of what might be going on with your adrenals. Because a lot of people's adrenals are off, and then you're going to have poor thyroid, you're going to have poor hormones, and it all just trickles down because every system of the body works together. So those are probably some of the differences that I run. Whereas like a medical doctor's probably barely going to even look at hormones. And they're probably going to do a CMP, CBC, and maybe like a TSH, T4. And really that panel is just to tell you you're not dying. It's not
Yeah.
going to fix metabolic issues or anything. And that's not what they're trained to do. So, healthcare is a lot different than what a functional nutrition or what a functional doctor is going to do. We're looking for root causes rather
Yeah.
than where we can just hand out a medicine. So,
And so I'm assuming obviously you do some lifestyle changes, make sure recovery is good. And I know, like, I'm assuming, so I worked with, Josh, we had the
yep.
same client. And so, I mean, he showed me some of the supplements he was taking and some of the peptides. So you're like really versed into that. So along with the lifestyle changes, are you recommending specific kinds of supplements or medications or anything?
Yeah. Are we talking about more like the woman side or?
Yeah, right now the women, I
Yeah.
guess. Yeah.
So, it really comes down to, are they menopausal or non-menopausal? If they're pre-menopause, a lot of these women are going to have low progesterone. We got to get that cranking up again. So they're going to be estrogen dominant. So I might use a little dim to push on liver detox. Might bring up some chaseberry to bring up their progesterone. And then really, if they have weight loss resistance, usually that lies somewhere in cellular inflammation. And so you need to push autophagy, also called immunosenescence, where your immune system's just over cranking and you have these cells that are not really being chewed up, But they're there, but the hormone receptors are no longer working well. The mitochondria is not burning fat like it should. So you got to push those out. So I'll support the hormones. I'll fix the gut before I do any of these other ideas. But then once I get to that point, if I'm dealing with a weight loss resistant client, I'll start doing some autophagy phases. I might do some whole food plant-based diet because that allows you to push autophagy without going into fasting. Then I might do a 24-hour fast. I might do a fast mimicking day. I might have some keto in there, all to get autophagy cranking and to get that immunosenescence out and to really get the body with new cells that are going to be responsive and do what you got to do. But you got to set the body up for it first. You can't go in cranking on all that until you get, the gut right, the adrenals right, thyroid right, gut right. And then if you still can't lose weight, there's probably some cellular inflammation. And then I go into the autophagy stuff. That's when you also can bring in peptides you're talking about. If they're really struggling, something like tirzepatide's great. It helps with the hunger. So if I got to do fasting days, keto days, but it also pushes autophagy. That's what people don't realize about GLP-1s. They're great at pushing autophagy.
Is that all GLP-1s?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Even semaglutide, definitely. Now, tirzepatide, in my opinion, is better. It doesn't crush hunger as hard. But all of those are helping the body lower something called glucagon. And when you're stressed and inflamed, glucagon generally is going to be pushing out because you're trying to run from the tiger. That's what the body thinks. Yeah. So glucagon signals to the liver to dump in carbs and fats constantly into the bloodstream. Well, that's going to ruin your insulin sensitivity, but it's also going to be hard to burn fat if you constantly have a supply of sugar. Well, you got to turn that glucagon off, and these people get stuck with that releasing. Well, guess what GLP-1s do? It lowers glucagon so insulin can signal perfectly and clear out all that shit. And when all that shit gets cleared out, now inflammation falls. And now the body can do its autophagy and different processes that were bogged down and clear out all those senescent cells. Senescence is just how you age. I mean, the cells get damaged, then they get DNA damage, then you get cancer, then you get all these other issues. And so by preventing that, that's why they say fasting is one of the great ways to prevent disease and lower inflammation because it pushes autophagy. So I'm just using these different things in and out based on what's wrong with the client. I mean, I have people come to me and they tell me they have weight loss resistance, but we fix their gut and then they drop like crazy. So there really was no cellular, immunosenescence issues at the cellular level. They just had some bad gut issues and we got to fix, and now their body's doing what we need it to do. I just don't always know exactly. And I have forms that kind of tell me how deep the case may be. But sometimes, they're a little off, but I always have a way to work through the issues. You work through the gut, you work through the hormones, and then you see where the case is. Other peptides you can use are like methylene blue, but that's not really a peptide. It's really a dye.
Someone had a question about that, actually.
Yeah, it lowers oxidative stress really well inside the cell. And that's, reactive oxygen species, that oxidative stress, you need some to create antioxidants. But again, when you are not functioning properly, it builds and that creates inflammation and damage to the cell. Well, methylene blue helps clear that out. NAD plus, not really a peptide, but kind of gets lumped in with that, does something similar. It lowers oxidative stress. It creates cell integrity and helps repair cells, but also helps your body use glycogen and fats better inside the mitochondria. So we have a tool really for anything. It really just depends how deep the case is and what's going on with someone and what we use. Now we can use those to supercharge a body too. So some people, maybe they don't necessarily have crazy weight loss resistance, but they're having some imbalances and some issues. And we can use those to clear things out. And I use those with men who are maybe a little older or who have issues, because that's what I did for myself to get back to the stage. I used a lot of those to clear things out, and then pushed on. And that's what I called my slingshot method. But I'll stop right there. I could ramble on forever, and I'll talk with you.
No, it's good. It's good. So with the tirzepatide, are you using like a clinical dose, or are you using more or less? Okay, so
you always use the less. The reason these meds got a really bad rap is because, number one, they were handed out by salons, and they start you at the lowest medical dose many a times. Sometimes I see them start higher, but they tell you go up every 4 weeks and just keep going up. And you get to these doses where you end up with gastroparesis, or very, very slowed down gastric emptying. And then what happens is people aren't eating at all. And so then women are saying, well, I'm losing hair and I'm losing muscle. Well, yeah, no shit. You're not working out. You're eating 500 calories. Of course your hair's falling out. Of course you're losing muscle. You want to, what I've found is if you get the body very healthy and fix the root causes, as many as you can with nutrition, lifestyle, maybe a few herbals, if they're still struggling a little bit to lose weight, then you can kick them in with a dose that's lower than the lowest medical dose, and the body just zooms. It just needed that little kick over the hill. So I usually start with like 12.5 units of tirzepatide, and that's half the medical dosing, which would be 25
Yeah.
units. Obviously, I'm not a doctor. I can't write a script for this. I have a clinic, and they meet with my nurse practitioners. They decide the ultimate dosing, not me.
Yeah.
But I generally, there's ways to get these things other ways. And if someone wants me to help them and talk to them about it, I'll at least give them advice. But, I can't script these things. But that's what I would recommend is because 30% of women don't respond to these drugs. And it's not because there's something wrong with the drug. They are that dysfunctioned. They usually have gut issues. They usually have hormonal issues. And they're just given this as a way to over trump all those things. And it just can't. It even can't get over all the inflammation. So then they end up with me like, oh, well, this didn't work. Now what do I do? And it's like, no, it'll work. We got to fix your gut. You got to be shitting daily. You can't be having gas that clears a room. Let's get that done. And then your hormones are a mess. If you're menopausal, they're not coming back. So let's talk about that. If you're pre-menopause, okay, few herbals, lifestyle, deal with stress. Let's get your hormones, everything balanced. And then if you're still not losing weight, sure, we can use this as a hump, get over the hump, but not something that we rely on.
I really want to get into some digestive stuff in a second, but did you see I think it was pretty new, a study out of University of Alberta about the GLP-1s and um, decreasing the size of the heart, which I don't know if that's great for general public. I don't know, but I mean, for a bodybuilder, it seems that that could be beneficial, right? Like, have you heard of that? You have any
Definitely.
thoughts on that?
I haven't read the study, um, but definitely someone who has athlete's heart or even, LVH hypertrophy because they've done too much GH and gear, that could definitely be an important piece. As far as the general public, I don't know how that would
It
run.
said there's no change in the function when they were looking at. They did with mice, and then I think they recreated with the human heart cells, but they said they couldn't see any change in function. But yeah, I'm just thinking from a bodybuilder that that could potentially be
It's
good.
huge. And here's the thing with bodybuilding, like these drugs, like I've had guys who straight up ectomorphs. They need 800, 900 carbs to grow. But then what happens is they become toxic because the body bogs down, blood sugars shoot up, insulin starts to shoot up, and they just get nauseous. They get toxic. They're bloated, they're inflamed. You give that guy a little microdose, maybe even 10 units to tirzepatide. Now his body's a machine. He can take the food he needs to grow, and he's not going toxic. He's not getting inflamed. And guess what that means? Less senescence, less hardship on the body. These can be very, very useful for bodybuilders who got to push their food up into insane levels to grow to keep themselves way, way healthier. So I've gotten a lot of backlash for this, and people want to chirp behind your back. Look at what they do. They lower inflammation. They push autophagy. They give your beta cells a rest. They tell your insulin when to time properly with food, and they keep your A1C lower. A little bit is going to help these bodybuilders that push. They're going to bodybuild whether you help them or not. So my job is to keep you as healthy as possible and keep you in the game as long as I can if I'm your bodybuilding coach. So I'm using these with guys who have to take in those insane amounts who always end up toxic from it, and now they're getting bigger than they ever have because now their body's a well-oiled machine and they can take the food. I mean, let's think about it. Bodybuilding is genetics, not just how your muscles respond to training. How do you take the gear? How do you take the food? Can you digest all that meat? All that goes into bodybuilding. And all the guys who can do that at the optimal level, they're going to rise to the top. So if you need to kick it a little bit with these things to help put you in a situation to do it, you're going to be doing it healthier and longer in the long run. That's just my opinion.
Yeah.
That's just what I've seen. I think you're going to see a lot of coaches using it. I think a lot of coaches are using it now and they don't talk about it because they don't want to deal with the backlash.
Yeah, and well, I think a lot of the issues that people have with it is like you said, when people are taking the clinical and more than that dose, because I do think
Yep.
it affects your look. I had a client. I mean, I'm in Newport Beach, California, so fucking none of my clients are really on it, but like I see those
Yep.
Ozempic faces everywhere I go, and I had a male client that was on it, and he was prescribed Anavar as well, and he just just was just terrible. And as soon as he got off of it, like, he lost the weight initially, but as soon as he got off it, his muscles filled out. He could actually work
Oh
out
yeah.
because he could eat
Yep.
some calories. So, and I know Dr. Mike was really pushing it, and he kind of looked like shit at his show, but I think he was doing more than the like what
He
you're
might have been
recommending.
doing more because that's the best I've ever looked.
Yeah, you looked
And I'm
awesome. So
40, I'm
you,
almost 47, and I just came off of shingles
oh wow,
in March, and I was on
yeah,
stage by what, July, winning the Tampa. Granted, it was Masters, but hey, there was 21 guys there, and no one's a slouch. It was the best I ever looked, but I did
yeah,
it
you look really
in
good.
small doses.
Yeah, and you use the slingshot method. Well, I want to get into that
Yep.
in a second. Now, I also know you're a fan of rapamycin, right?
Yeah.
Now, what I don't know, is that like drug-induced autophagy as well, or what is
Yes,
that?
it
Okay,
is.
okay,
So rapamycin, again, this is a prescription drug, and you're not going to generally find it online. You're going to need to come to a clinic like mine or some others that is well versed in these type of things. At higher doses, it actually lowers your immune system
yeah,
and helps anti-rejection of organs. So if you had an
yeah,
organ
that's what I
implant,
thought.
but what they found was in low doses and just flicking it in, like maybe 3 mg twice a week, it increases your immune system and lowers inflammation big
Okay,
time and pushes your body through autophagy without having to fast. So, in my opinion, I ran 6 weeks right after I had the shingles. I did 6 mgs once a week. I could have done 3 and 3. I just did one tab once a week. And my whole deal was to get that immunosenescence out. A lot of times, people with shingles, because of the virus and everything, the immune system taking a pretty hard hit. So I just did 6 weeks of it. And then what I noticed was when I hopped back on just a little bit of gear, man, my body like took to it like no other.
yeah.
I was getting lean and ripped because what does autophagy do? It pushes out cells that are damaged. The hormone receptors probably aren't doing their thing and brings in new cells that have good hormone receptors, proper performing mitochondria. So it's an amazing drug. And I'll tell you right now, we use it to treat long COVID at the clinic. I can't tell you how many people have came to us on their deathbeds. They're being given breathing treatments, just treating the symptoms rather than thinking about what is the problem? Immune compromised and inflammation. Oh, okay. So you give them a little rapamycin, 6 to 8 week treatment. They're right back to their feet and they're kicking ass. So it's amazing that a lot of the country isn't using that way yet. But we are. And so if anyone out there is struggling with long COVID, come see us. But rapamycin's a great drug for helping to push autophagy, but really lower inflammation and restore immunity if someone's compromised.
And then I think there's one more I'm curious about. It's
LDN.
is that the one that's used for the opioids?
Yep.
Okay, yeah, yeah. Because I was curious about that. What kind of what is it called again?
So naltrexone is the one is
Naltrexone.
like when
Yeah.
they dose it at 50 mgs to 100 mgs a day for opioid, or just coming off really any drug, it'll help. Alcohol, food addictions,
And
really
is it a
anything, it'll help. And the way it works is when you take just a low dose of it, number one, it doesn't have all the liver toxicity. I've had my labs done a million times, all my but at higher doses, you got to watch your liver. But what it does is it blocks the opioid receptor for a couple hours. It's quick and in and out. And anything that is blocked, when it gets unblocked, pushes more out. So then you get hit with all these opioid basically type feeling, and it calms the body. It's like basically like the endorphins that you get after a training session where you feel good and you're just up and happy. That is what this brings to you. So it helps
so for like
anxiety.
cortisol?
It'll bring cortisol down big
Yeah.
time. When I started LDN, my cortisol was 24. I've got a lot of shit going on. I got a lot of companies. I got a lot of people relying on me. I tried to get my cortisol down. It just was not coming. It caused a lot of muscle pain and imbalances in me because it was long term. The last lab I got, my cortisol was down to 15. Now I did hire differently and try to, do some lifestyle changes too. But that's the lowest I've seen my cortisol in years. I've seen 30s, I've seen 28s. It's a definite issue for me. But the LDN was able to bring that down. It got rid of all that pain issues that I'm having, and my CRP was like 0.15. So
Wow.
my inflammation is just really down, and that's good because I don't usually have great HDL numbers. And so, if you're not inflamed, it's going to be much harder to plaque your arteries. The reason arteries plaque is inflammation, and they're going to heal it, and they're bombarded, and then it creates that calcification. So if you can take away that inflammation, I don't think you need as many statins. Now, there's people who have, lipo A and apo B issues, and those are super high. They might be a case for statins. But if you're not in that situation, you just have some poor LDL, maybe HDL.
Yeah.
I believe if you control your internal inflammation, and my last C score, I had 0. So I'm a big fan of it. It also works really well to restore mucosal lining of the gut, which is very helpful in SIBO cases. And it also modulates the immune system. So if you're running a little high, it's going to bring you down. You're running low, it's going to bring you up. But with that one, again, you got to see a medical professional. We do script it. All my clinicians are able to do that, and they know how to do it. It needs to be worked up slowly. So you start at 1.5, you give that 2 to 3 weeks, then you go to 3. Most people only need 3 to 4.5 mgs. I don't recommend going any higher unless you have a true autoimmune condition, because you could modulate yourself too low. And the body is interesting. You want some inflammation. You don't want it too low. It's just like blood pressure. If it's too high, you damage your kidneys. If it's too low, you pass out, right? Everything in the body you want in the middle range. So we need some inflammation to be healthy. And when I say that, it's more like your IL-6s need to be in the right ranges to keep different diseases down. And we don't want to modulate that too hard. So if you're a really healthy person, you want it just for anti-anxiety, or anytime you keep inflammation down, you're going to live longer. If you want it for the anti-aging, stay in the 3 to 4.5 range, in my opinion. If you're someone with Hashimoto's, colitis, we've gone up to 9 mgs on those people because they have so much inflammation, it's not going to modulate them down too far. So, that's just one of those things, but it's a big, big drug in anti-aging, as is rapamycin.
And I mean, you have like a whole supplement line just kind of dedicated to support this kind of stuff too, right?
Yep.
So what are some of the other things that you can use to support this that you have?
Yep. So with New Ethics, we have Cordy's, and that's our biggest seller.
Yeah, I recommend that. I always recommend that. I used to use Matt Porter had a good one too back in the day.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Cordy's is our biggest seller. I mean, there's no doubt about that. It's not even close. So you can definitely use that with, obviously, lifestyle changes. Like I hired externally to take off some of my weight. I dropped my client list. You're going to have to do something to get you where you need to go. But our Cordy's paired with like some extra ashwagandha, which we also make, is really a nice stack. And then we have like something called Relax. That's a liposomal that you can pair at night and get really deep, restful sleep. So I track it. I have an Oura ring. And when I don't take Cordy's and Relax, my deep sleep is barely out of 30. When I do take them, I'm getting into the hour and a half. And, I'm almost 50, hate to say it, but your deep sleep goes down as you age. When you're in your 30s and under, you get 1.5 to 2 hours. As you get closer to 50 and 60s, you get less and less. But with those products, I watch and I can get those higher levels and that restorative sleep that you need. So if anyone tracks, do a little experiment with and without if you want to try our product, and I promise you'll see your deep sleep go up.
Yeah, I'll do it. I got my Oura ring. Yeah, I love checking
Cordy's
that stuff.
and Relax together.
Nice.
You'll see it go up, and that's going to make you function better. It's going to make you grow better if you're a bodybuilder. All those things. Sleep's probably one of the most important things.
Yeah. So let's use like me for an example, because I'm pretty typical, I would say, of like a bodybuilder who we get through our diet phase, our contest prep, and in general, like at least, for me, as I get closer to prep, my digestion kind of gets worse. But right after I do my show and everything, it kind of really improves a lot as you're less stressed out. And then you start your off season, and first month I'm able to eat and everything's going good. And then at a certain point, it just appetite kind of goes away. You feel bloated, digestion kind of gets funky, whether it's like frequent bowel movements or not, like not feeling like when you need to make a bowel movement. So what would you say are some of the mechanisms that are coming on? And I do notice my blood sugar gets a little elevated at that point.
Yeah. I 100%. So as far as going into a show, and I'll just say the general bodybuilder is usually on Tren by then, and Tren is very well known to zap hydrochloric from your stomach. So any bodybuilder using that should be on hydrochloric and a good pancreatic enzyme by the time Tren is in their diet. And then I noticed that you can take that reflux and different things down a notch. Usually that final few weeks, I use a peptide called Selenk with my bodybuilders and pair that with saffron. Nootropics Depot makes one. that will help you sleep better and pull down the effects of that trend. So you won't be as anxious, you won't be as anxiety ridden, and you'll sleep better. So there's that. Now going into the off season and post show, cortisol is generally going to be up. Luckily, if we're an enhanced bodybuilder, we don't have the hormonal issues going on, but we do have to self-regulate after and get into a health phase. We will have some swings. But generally speaking, we're looking at adrenals as the biggest probably thing that's taken a hit. And so once we get into the health phase, I like to take care of adrenals. I'll use some of our Adrena Health, some extra vitamin C, things like that after the show. I did it for myself. And then as we start to push food up, this is when, some guys have great insulin sensitivity and some guys don't. And so I'll take one of my clients. I ended up working with his dad for non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, and he was a type 2 diabetic. But we know type 2 is just lifestyle and there's some gene to it, but it's a lot of lifestyle, right? Well, every time this guy pushes his food up, he gets toxic. And we were really struggling to get him to be able to finish a full push phase with his food high enough to grow. So what is happening there is insulin sensitivity is fading, right? So basically you're now needing more and more insulin to cover the job each time. And so your metabolic processes are just not working as much as you put more and more food on that body. And everyone is going to have a breaking point. The best bodybuilders probably don't have a breaking point. Ronnie probably was able to eat 1,000 carbs just like Jay, and they just like machines, enough GH worked for them. But even GH lowers insulin sensitivity. So if we got that in play, that's working against us. I'm like this. My blood sugars like to jump very quickly, and then I get toxic, and then my digestion slows. So once that inflammation builds from those sugars constantly in the bloodstream, you're going to notice your pumps start to fade and all these things. At one point you were just like a rock, and now it's like, I'm just not getting there. Nothing is being put into the muscle cell like it was. Okay. That's where your tirzepatides shine. That's where your methylene blues shine. That's where your NADs shine, because it's going to keep that process going and better off to allow you to push that food, not get toxic, not get bogged down. Now, if you take too much tirzepatide, it's going to affect your digestion as well. But digestion starts to fade as we push more and more food, and that inflammation of the full metabolic system builds. So if we can support that, that's where you're going to be able to push more food, take your blast or your push phases to a further level, and get your body to where you need it to be.
Do you have your bodybuilders who are a little higher GH use insulin at all?
I can, and I do sometimes. I have some of them who don't want to go there yet. Some of them want to just get pro status before, and that's fair.
I'm just talking about from a health standpoint, right? Sometimes.
Well, here's the thing. Log can help, at least around the para workout window. I'm not a big fan of Lantus. Think about it. I cringe when I see someone on a board say, well, just do Lantus. That'll bring your blood sugars down. Yeah, great. It brings your blood sugars down, but you're constantly bombarding your beta cells with fucking insulin all day. You're getting less sensitive, not more. You can't give your body a hormone and it do better. There's negative feedback loops. It's just like when you give testosterone, you're gonna produce less. So by giving your body an exogenous insulin, now your cells are bombarded by it every freaking day. Well, that's what happens when cortisol's up. You're constantly releasing, and now insulin has to come out because you're constantly releasing sugar. Lantus doesn't make you healthier. It just puts your blood sugar down. It fades your sensitivity. Now, log done around the para workout, it gets in and get out. So I am a fan of that, but not everyone wants to use it.
The pre and post?
Pre and post, if you got those carbs cranking. I mean, if you're up to the point where you're eating 800 carbs, you're probably getting 300 or 400 pre, intra, and post. Yeah. And so pre and post, I would use it to keep that cleared. And at least that is in and out within an hour or two. And so now you're back to your own body. Yeah. You're not just trickling Lantus all day. Listen, I realize Lantus will make you a monster, but it's also not going to help your sensitivity if you're someone who's prone to type 2 diabetes in your family. It's going to make it worse. I would rather see you use a low dose of tirzepatide and your logs pre and post than put Lantus in. That's just me. So
yeah, I haven't started the Humalog yet. I'll do a little bit pre and post usually in the off season, and I mean, as soon as I introduce it, my digestion improves 100-fold. Though it's like immediately I'm like, okay, that's processing things a little better.
Think about what tirzepatide does. It does the same thing every time you eat, because it's controlling that glucagon. Your insulin, your own insulin, is being secreted more than it would have because of all that metabolic stress is now down. The glucagon's down. You're starting to clear inflammation. So it's going to do the same thing. If at a micro dose, you're going to notice your digestion get better.
So yeah, so how does all this like improve aesthetics? Obviously, it's gonna help with fat loss and muscle gain, but how would you say it improves aesthetics?
Well, I think you got to look at what it's doing at the root. So, like I said, it's lowering that glucagon. You're timing up your insulin. So think about if you just took Humalog with 3 or 4 IUs with every meal, you're going to shuttle better. So you're going to be fuller all
Be
day.
full, yeah.
You're going to lower inflammation. So anytime you put your body in a situation where inflammation's lower, insulin's timed right, beta cells get a break, your food is going to make it where you to the cells that you want, brain, liver, muscle, rather than to the fat tissue. So you're basically supercharging your metabolic rate where the food is going where you want it to instead of into the fat cell. So you're going to build muscle faster and you're going to stay leaner. So to me, that's what it's doing at the cellular level, and that's what it's doing, and it's translating to how you look outside.
Yeah, let's look at an example. I have one of your guys. I want to just kind of show people what this can actually do, and maybe you can explain a little bit what's going on. Can you see that okay?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so this is one of your guys that you were helping.
Yep.
Like, and like I said, it seems like you kind of swoop in when stuff doesn't respond that good, right? So
Yep.
this is an older competitor, and this was after 3 weeks
49.
when this was kind of the before,
That's
and
where he came to me.
it
Yep.
just looks kind of like tired, I would
Yep.
say.
And he had
Not a
done
lot
a
of
show
lines.
like 3 or 4 days before that.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I mean, usually I mean, at that point I eat pretty good. I don't look quite so tired there, but what were the biggest changes you did
Yep. That's a
to
5 week change. We use tirzepatide microdosed. We use methylene blue, NAD, and a little SLU PP332.
Yeah, and someone asked about the SLUPP. What can you explain that real quick?
Yeah, so not everyone's probably going to want to take it because it is underground lab right now. It's in its final legs of trials. I haven't seen any bad literature on it. All the studies look good. It's basically exercise in a bottle. It makes your body think that it's like running a marathon when it's not. So you're burning more calories at rest. It also lowers inflammation, but it brings neuroinflammation down big time. So I like it for that piece because my father passed with Parkinson's and dementia. And he was a bodybuilder. He was healthy. He walked all the time and he still got that shit. So that's all type 3 of the brain. And so Sloop shines there. So I really like Sloop. So we combined all that together basically to lower oxidative stress, get his mitochondria using glycogen and fat better. We got his insulin timed up better. We got his glucagon down from all the stress. And he was eating more carbs there than he was into a show. And you can see what it did to his body. I mean, it looks refreshed. It looks
Yeah.
young. That's a 49-year-old competitor who may have just said fuck all, and so we were able to rejuvenate him and get a much better result in 5 weeks.
Yeah, I mean that's pretty impressive. And then maybe we can talk a little about your slingshot. I've seen you
Mm-hmm.
over the years kind of like develop this and then implement it with a couple people and then obviously yourself. So can you give me a little overview of that?
Yeah, so it really developed because of the problems I was having with shingles. Um, and I thought to myself, well, the research I did said that people with shingles have immunosenescence going on. You can Google it, shingles and immunosenescence. There's a lot of NCBI articles, and so I'm like, shit, man. Like, I try to eat right, but I know I'm a stressed guy and I'm an anxious guy, and it is what it is. It's made me very successful, but it's also going to take its toll on me. And I'm like, that's probably why my body just hasn't been responding like it was. I mean, to me, if you ask anyone around me, I said I was retired because my body just didn't respond like it did. I looked good to walk around, but the diets didn't work the same. It just didn't work the same. So I just set out to kind of clear my body out. I thought to myself, well, we got all these products now. What can I do to push this immunosenescence out? What can I do to just get healthier? Okay. So I used tirzepatide, rapamycin, LDN, methylene blue, and NAD. I didn't have access to Sloop yet. Okay. I first and foremost, right off the shingles, I did my Rappa. I didn't add anything else. I just added Rappa. I just wanted to get that autophagy going. I did some fasting on my own, plus the Rappa. I did some keto days, all those things, keto, fasting, fast mimicking, intermittent fasting, all those things help the body lower inflammation, and push autophagy. And I thought, okay, so I have access to these at my clinic. I know how they work. I need to bump my immune system. I'm going to use this. And I also want the autophagy. So I use 6 mgs once a week, very, very low dose. Like I said, I probably, if I did it today, would do 3 mgs Monday and Thursday, or Tuesday and Friday, whatever, something like that. And I did that for 6 weeks. And I just slowly got back into training. I was taking my time.
And you were like
But my
on
body
TRT
would
doses
start.
at the time? Sorry.
I'm sorry.
You're like on TRT doses at the time, or
TRT. Yep, TRT. Yeah, probably about 300 tests. I don't quite remember. Probably 300 tests. And I always usually have about 2 IUs of GH, so somewhere around there. Because I was just coming off shingles and I just wanted to start getting back in the gym. I started at a new gym, and everything was just kind of fresh and new. And, after 6 weeks, I wasn't looking bad. And we went on vacation. And my girlfriend, now my wife, was getting ready for her IFBB Pro show, and I was looking pretty good, and I thought, well, I don't know. I was talking to her. I was like, this might be my last little hurrah here. I might diet a little bit with you. And so I was like, okay, what can I do here to make my body even more responsive? So I started thinking it through, and I had been using GLP-1s with my weight loss resistant clients, and I knew everything that they did. Lowered glucagon. I'm a high stressor, so I know mine's always up. I'm always dumping sugars. That's why I struggle with my insulin. I saw my insulin as high as 16, and if you know anything, optimal is around 2.5 to about 6. And I have abs, but like 16 is not good. And so I thought to myself, what can I do? And I know that these tirzepatides and all these things work well, but I still was kind of like, people say you lose muscle. And I said, fuck it. I just want to see if I lose muscle, what's it matter? So I started with a really low dose of it. And I start with my NAD plus because it helps your body use sugars and fats in the cell better. I brought methylene blue in because I knew I had oxidative stress. I'd already run my Rapa. I was having still some muscle tightness and things because of my anxiety. So I brought LDN in. I know that that's going to lower inflammation. So I just started using this. I bumped my gear a bit. And lo and behold, my body, I was looking like 4 weeks out after like 4 weeks. And I'm like, okay, what is going on here? And my body was just responding to things like it hadn't in years. I felt like I was 30. Even my knees were good, and my knees killed me in 2021. I should have never competed. I eked out a 5th in the open, but my legs just were not where they used to be. And that's kind of after I retired. And everything's responding. My legs are filling out better, and my knees feel good. And I'm like, it's the lowered inflammation. It's how I'm utilizing everything. So then I still thought to myself, well, okay, if tirzepatide is not making me build muscle and I might want to do the show, I'm going to pull it out. So that's when I kind of started to call it a slingshot. I'm setting up the body, and then I'm going to pull this tirzepatide and a few things out and then let go. And I'm already going to have better insulin. I'm going to have lower A1C. I'm going to have lowered inflammation, and my body should just zoom. So that's what I did. And I lowered my carbs a little bit more, and I just kept getting tighter and tighter and tighter. Then I thought to myself, I'm just going to put this back in. I got to see what happens. It just feels like I was doing better with it in at a low dose. So I put it back in, and I just ran it on into the show.
Did you up your carbs when you reintroduced it?
I had to. By the time I got to Worlds, I was on 400 carbs.
Just every
That
day?
was the second show. But I had to keep adding food because I was just getting lean and lean and lean.
And you're a pretty low fat guy, right?
I generally am. It was about 40. I've used to have to take them to about 20 to 30 to get my glutes, but I didn't have to this time. It was about 40, 45, which felt better for my joints and just overall brain health. But yeah, I'm a lower fat, more of a carb guy for sure. And so I just kept it in. And so, my theories changed a little bit. I thought you had to probably pull that tirzepatide out, but now I'm like, I don't think so. If you keep that at a low enough dose, it's going to make you build muscle faster because of all these things it's doing. But my theory at first was prime the body, pulled some of these things out, and then just go. And it did work really well because I was so primed. But once I put it back in, I noticed I even could diet on more food. My cardio was walking at a 2.5 pace for about an hour and a half a day. And then I trained my butt off. That's it. I never had to do HIIT. I never had to do miss. I was sleeping great. I never, had sleep trouble. My body just wasn't that stressed. And then 8 weeks post show, my cortisol was at 15. So, everything worked out perfectly, and I've never looked better. And during the peak week, most guys pull GH about 2 weeks out. I wasn't holding any water because my inflammation was so low and my insulin's so well timed. I rocked it in till about 3 days out. And honestly, I don't know that I needed to even pull it, but I was able to keep it in because I didn't have that inflammation. So it made me look better and fuller. In the past, I always had to pull it about 2 weeks out. And then during peak week, I just had a calm about me that I've never had before in my life. And it's just because every little move we made, and I don't know if you know Phil Viz, but he's a good friend of mine for years. And anytime I get into a show, I always do my own prep, but like he comes on at the end to
Yeah,
kind of keep me doing.
we
What's
get
that?
crazy. So we get
Huh?
crazy. We just need a second
We
eyes.
do. Right.
Yeah.
And so just to keep me on the line, and every move he made, my body we could just see it. And so, but that's because I was so uninflamed. I didn't have inflammation. My anxiety and stress were controlled. Everything was better
Digestion
than it's ever
smooth.
been. Yeah. It was just smooth. And it was like that for worlds too. Every little move we made, my body responded. And it had never been like that before. So listen, some people may not want to use it. And if you are 30 years old and you're optimal, you don't probably need to use it. But if you're in your 40s and you've noticed your diet's not working as well as it used to, or you're even out of the sport, we've got things that can revitalize how you work at the cellular level. And hey, I was willing to use it and see how it went. And guys like me are the ones who do the experiments, and people find out and it works. And someone's got to trailblaze on it. And so I wanted to give it a roll.
Yeah, that's really cool. And did you when you took that out, the tirzepatide, did you take anything else out, or you just ran that all with it the whole?
I took out. No, that was it, because the MB and the NAD just made sense to keep in. And the LDN, I just kept in year round at that point because it helped my anxiety so much. You could definitely drop the LDN. I still think staying on the MB and the NAD makes the most sense just to keep that cellular level. But that once you get your A1C down and your glucagon in a good level with the tirzepatide, you could pull it. You could while you grow if you wanted to, especially if it really affects your hunger at such a low dose. It doesn't do anything to my hunger. It does quiet the food noise, and meaning I never got hangry, which was really nice. I still felt like shit at some. I had a nap, by the time I was 3 weeks out, I was napping daily. It didn't take that part away, the energy just down that you are when you're that lean, but I never was hangry. And I wasn't, short with people, my clients, my family. I just never had a hangry feeling, and that it just takes that food noise off, which again then lowers your stress, which is going to make your body look better.
Now, are you big on doing things to like restore gut health? Or do you like probiotics, prebiotics? Like one of the
Yeah.
questions we had was, say someone ran a pretty strong course of antibiotics, like augmentin or something. How would you recommend them trying to improve their gut health after
Well,
that?
if you're on antibiotics, I love Saccharomyces boulardii. It's resistant to antibiotics, so it'll really help, and it helps with diarrhea. Like if people get traveler's diarrhea, it can help kill like some of those bugs, but also help with that. So I like Sac B while you're on an antibiotic. Afterwards, you can usually use a nice like broad spectrum probiotic. We have one called Flora Protect just to re-inoculate and maybe up your fiber a bit. Um, but people that come to me have more deeper seated gut issues a lot of times. I definitely have to put it back in hydrochlorics. I'm usually using some apple cider vinegar in the morning with aloe vera to pull inflammation down, with lemon juice. Then I usually have them on hydrochloric with meals and a pancreatic enzyme and bile. I use beta plus. And then if that doesn't clear things up, then we get a GI map, because usually then there's some dysbiosis or even potential SIBO. Maybe they got high beta glucuronidase, just a lot of different things going on. So I have a really in-depth gut form that they fill out. I try to fill in the pieces where they look low. It'll test their bile just based on their responses, their pancreatics, their hydrochlorics. I try to put that back naturally, some with the ACV and a little bit of supplements. If after 3 to 4 weeks of cleaning up the diet and doing that and pulling stress down and all those things, if their gut's still a mess, then I usually get a GI map. But usually, a lot of people come to me and say they have SIBO, and they don't. They just need lifestyle changes, a little support with enzymes and more hydrochloric and a better diet, and then it clears right up. But if it's still a problem 4 weeks in, I get a GI map, and then I dig into that, and then I might run what's called a 5R gut protocol, where I use some herbals to kill things, and I use a biofilm that we make to pull down the biofilms, and different things like that. But at first, stress, pull it down. May have to pull back training, may have to pull back hit cardio, support with
Are
some
you
enzymes.
pulling protein down at all or anything when you're
It
trying to?
depends. Not it depends how high they are. I mean, if it's a bodybuilder, like I've had countable IFBB pros come to me with gut issues, and their protein's way too high. Their coach is 10 ounces of meat every meal. Well, dude, that's like not like 80 grams of protein every meal. Like, not everyone's built to eat that. And it's like, dude, if you're a one-trick pony, you can't see that they're fucked up. Like, pull that shit down. Maybe use some whey protein. Maybe use more eggs. I don't know, but it's wild to me. But I'll get these guys that come to me and they're eating 10 ounces of meat every meal, 7 days, seven. And it's like, so, at first, I'll pull that down, of course, but most people that come to me are pretty sensible on their protein. I don't have too many people eating an absurd. Although I did have a woman come to me at about 190 grams. She was only like 135. I pulled it down to like 90 and put her carbs way up, and she feels the best she's ever felt. So, that one I did have to. But most people are pretty reasonable that come to me on their protein.
And so, do you modify people's cardio often if you're trying to get them to,
All the time.
lower the cortisol? You have them do
All the
less or what?
time. I mean,
Yeah.
most people come to me. Um, a lot of women will come to me. They're doing, Orange Theory. They're doing spin class 3 or 4 nights a week. All that's got to stop. You got to literally do the opposite. So I just put them on a walking, 30 minutes fasted, usually 8 to 10K steps, depending on where they were at with that. Clean up the diet. I put them on a low inflammation diet, basically Mediterranean style. I do a whole anti-inflammatory period for the first 14 days where I crank on the liver to get the toxins out, all these pesticides people eat, all this bullshit. Crank on the liver, detox them, put them on a Mediterranean style diet. That usually fixes 70% of the issues. And then you got just a little bit left that you got to fix. But just going right to that anti-inflammatory, I put them on our Metapure and our Optapure, but one lowers inflammation, the other one clanks on liver. Get them on a diet that's got, a lot of cruciferous veggies to also crank the liver, get them antioxidants that they're generally not eating, the lower reactive oxygen species and all that oxidative stress. And like I said, usually 70% of them at that point, their issues are down. And then it's just the rest of that 30% you got to tweak as a coach to move forward. So I teach all this in my Scooby U. That's what that is above. I got a whole process where I flush out the body. I build in rest. Then I work with the functional issues and feed them up. And I teach all this how to work a functional case. It's a step-by-step process that I do.
Yeah, I see your stuff that you're doing. Is this like a live course or is it
It was taught live 10 times between 2022 and 2023. Now it's self-study on Kartra. That's course 1. And then course 2 is getting ready to drop around January. So that one's going to be all case studies. How do I put colitis in remission? How do I put psoriasis in remission? What happens when, a 5R doesn't work with a GI map? How do you use antibiotics? Just different things that build on the first course. But you have to take the first one first because you have to know the format, my RF3 system, before you can apply it in course 2. But I've had probably 500 coaches come through and take them. And I'd say we're about 98% happy. People really leave a lot of good reviews of it.
Are there any other like modalities that you're a big fan of that help with recovery or lowering inflammation? You like
Yeah, I'm
infrared,
big
anything like
on.
that?
I always put in restorative yoga. So I was the one I like. If you Google 30-minute restorative yoga, it should pop up in the top. But I usually put that in. And so I usually pull training on a lot of these people for the first 2 weeks because they're too inflamed, man. And that's one of the biggest problems. So I usually pull their training and I have them do this yoga 30 minutes a day, just walking, eating better. And usually a lot of my women will lose. I'll put them on, I'll have women come to me 1,100 calories. I don't do that 5 and 10 shit every week. That's how they get fatter. I put them right up to 2,000. Protein's usually about 85. Carbs are 230, 270. Fats are high. And I crank on the liver. And I'll usually get about 6 to 7 pounds off of them in 2 weeks. And they're like, whoa, how the hell did you do that?
What do you mean when you say crank on the liver? What's the main way you're doing that?
Well, I do it with diet, choosing proper foods, and then I do it with our Optapure, which is all liver detox supplements in one bottle. And then our Metapure is like a medical food protein. It's vegan, and it's got like quercetin in it. It's got you name it, it has it. Curcumin, it's all in there. plus all the vitamins and minerals someone needs for proper detox. Most people's bodies are bogged down. And I love when people are like, oh, we all have a liver, we all detox. Well, no shit. But if your body is not in a good state, it's not doing it optimally. So that's like one of my first steps is to get things working. But I use a lot of restorative yoga. And if they don't like that, then I'll do like deep breathing where you do like diaphragmatic breathing is great for lowering cortisol. So they'll do three
It's pretty much
rounds.
all I do is have people breathe all day. That's like my job.
Yeah,
So
right.
I know
So
that's huge.
yeah, the way I do it is they'll take a breath, it's all diaphragmatic, and then take another breath. So it's kind of like, and then you let that out for 4 seconds, do that 10 times, and then kind of take a break, maybe just like a minute, and then do it another block, and then another block. It takes you about 10 minutes, but it'll bring your cortisol down really big. So if they're just not really into the restorative yoga, I'll do that. But I like the restorative yoga. It gets them more flexible and they're breathing while they're doing it and still kind of working the body. If you do it, I mean, some of those poses do make you flex. So you are getting isometrics in there while they're not training. But those are some of my bigger modalities. I also like people just to get out and get sun on the eyes. A lot of people have adrenal issues, and just starting your day, if you can, at least get outside, get some sun is going to help. And then grounding, just get out, walk out in the grass. All that really does help. Some of that you think it's foo-foo, but you add it all together on a really stressed body, and it does start to give you major results within 2 or 3 weeks.
Is there anything you're trying out now or you have your eye on that you think might, like, you have any theories on things that might work that you haven't really put out there yet that you want to test a little more?
No, I don't think so. Well, one thing I'm doing is I can share this. So with any medication, your body's going to get used to it. Any supplement, any medication, it's going to eventually stop working. So I've been using tirzepatide or whatever GLP if someone had to go to that route. How do we get them off? How do we bridge it so the weight doesn't want to skyrocket back up, but also keep them in a good spot and then reset so they can use it again when they need to. So I've been playing with some things like using Sloop as a bridge, the SLUPP332, in between those phases. Stuff like MOTS-C, which is also lowers oxidative stress and improves insulin sensitivity. That's a peptide, and MOTS-C lowers as we get older. Different things like that to kind of be able to get people off GLP-1s, hold a lot of their progress, and then that way, if they need to go back on, it'll work for them. Because I can tell you this, people who just stay on GLP-1s and rely on it, it's going to stop working for you eventually.
And so you usually like it like contest prep or just like a pushing phase?
Yeah, like well, you can use either way. Like if you use your GLP-1 for contest prep, I would definitely come off 6, 7, 8 weeks after, like I did. I dropped mine. And if you're using it for fat loss, same thing. Like if you do an 8, 12-week push, great, use it. But then you need to be able to pull the dose down slowly, get off of it, and then some people are great to bridge without it. Some people, especially the more dysfunction they were, do better with having something to help. I was using metformin, works pretty decent, but I'm playing around with Sloop in those phases for people who will use it to see how well it bridges. And it seems to be doing really well in that aspect because it keeps the inflammation lower. And as we bring up calories, sometimes people's body starts to, want to get a little more inflamed and the sugars start to want to fade again. But that Sloop lowers that inflammation, so it keeps restored. That sensitivity stays restored. But like I said, metformin can be used too, and you do throw in MOTS-C. So it's really just different things of coming off. The younger the person is, the more I see that they can use it as a tool if needed and come off with no bridging. The older they are, it seems like they need a little bit of a bridge, just a little bit, to not have the body go back the way it was.
Cool. Yeah, that's really interesting. I really like how you're kind of like, unmeatheading bodybuilding, even though
Yeah.
you are still, a
Yeah. Still. Yeah.
meathead.
Yep.
But
Still.
that's really cool. Let's talk just a little bit about your career for a second. So, if
Sure.
I remember correctly, you turned pro as a Masters, right?
I did. Yeah. I won.
Okay.
I won the overall at the Masters 2016. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Because I I remember you. I was really rooting for you to make it to Olympia, and I know you
Yeah.
got at least 1 second, right?
I got a second in Kentucky. Yeah, my
Yeah.
pro debut, I got fifth. There's about 20 guys, and then the next show I did was in Kentucky. It was on my home
And
turf.
you're from, yeah, I was about to say you're from Kentucky, right? Yeah.
Yeah. And the funny story is this. So the guy that did San Antonio, or not San Antonio, it was a Florida show. I'm blanking on the name of it. But anyways,
The
he was
Hurricane,
an,
wasn't it?
what's that?
Was it the Hurricane Pro?
Hurricane. Yes,
Yeah, I
that's it.
remember. Yeah.
Yes, it was a hurricane. So there was an Olympian who was a 212 who came down just to get his requalification in classic, but he was a 212 Olympian bodybuilder. So he shows up 3 weeks later and comes into classic. The guy then who would have got first gets second, right? Well, because he didn't get first, he showed up in Kentucky and he's who beat me. Had that guy not came down, I don't know that guy would have traveled to Kentucky to get his qualification, and I probably would have won. It is what it is, man. There's always someone better, but it's just like, and then, at that point in time, nothing against her, but my ex-wife just didn't love the competing. And she had already said, if you don't win, this is it. If you win, you can do the Olympia. And so when I heard my name called second, man, it was a gut punch. And I knew that was over for me. If we stayed married, we did not. And then, the
Too bad
story goes,
they were doing points then. You should have just ran
they were doing,
another
she
show.
went that, like, so by
I'd say end up
2019,
divorced anyway.
right. But 2019, this is a story. I was still in shape, like really peeled. Everyone's texting me because the points came out in like August. I still only needed 2 points. I hadn't competed all year. I only needed 2 points to get into the final slots. They're like, dude, you're always getting top fives. Just go do a show. I asked her. She's like, no. And I'm like, so
I remember I was so bummed because like I root for because you are masters. I'm gonna try to turn pros and
yep,
masters, and I've been
yep,
following you forever. I was like
yep,
so close.
yep. And it does suck and it does burn, but it just wasn't meant to be, and it is what it is. And I'll have fun hopefully doing Masters Olympia, and you never know, if you win that, you do get
Yeah.
an invite. So maybe that's the way it goes
Is that
now.
next year?
It's yeah.
Okay.
August 22nd next
Oh,
year.
cool. Nice.
Yeah.
So that's what you're going for?
Yep.
Oh,
Yeah.
cool. Is that somewhere crazy again? Is it like in
Yes,
Romania
in
again?
Tokyo.
Oh, well, that's cool. That's really cool. I would love to go to
Yeah, I mean,
Tokyo.
Japan will be cool. Like, they love bodybuilding, and
Yeah.
we're big sushi fans. So we're like, hey, maybe we'll check out some restaurants and just see how that goes. So it should be a pretty interesting event just because they love bodybuilding. So I think it'll be done up really big. So that's kind of where the focus is now, and go from there. So
Are you training
it's still,
any top pros right now, or you're
what's
more?
that?
Are you training any of the top pros right now, or are you
No, I
more?
don't have any top pros. Usually the pros that I get are kind of like masters, men and women who kind of see what I'm doing and want to revitalize their career. I just had a guy go fourth in masters, and he got like top 10 in open this last show. But no, any top names, I don't think. I would love to, but I think what was interesting is when I pivoted to functional, and I wasn't always pushing out all these bodybuilder postings, I think people, decided, well, Jay's not doing bodybuilding anymore. That wasn't true. I was just trying to make bodybuilding better and make it to the point where people could do it longer and healthier and all that. So I think that kind of hurt in that direction, but I don't regret it because it definitely helped my career in terms of just growth. And but I do think that kind of stopped some momentum in that field. But I'm totally good with where everything went. And
Yeah, I'm sure there's way more money in this.
yeah, yeah, and not a knock against any bodybuilders. I am myself, but a lot of times bodybuilders only need you a lot of times for the show, and then they drop you in the off season. Not all, but a lot. Most of my functional people and general nutrition, they want to be walked through the stages all year, and so they stay for 3-4 years. Whereas bodybuilders come in and come out.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
in terms of client retention, it was definitely a good move.
Yeah, I'm working with Compton, who I know you helped a long time ago,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
He was young, so I don't take any credit for anything.
No. When he credits you, I think you were one of his only coaches too. So
Yeah.
so you had a big
He was
influence
a
on
young
him.
buck.
You still talk to him at all?
Occasionally, but not often. Occasionally we'll DM, but it's been a minute. But Justin's always been a good guy, and I used to run into him all the time at shows in
Yeah.
Kentucky, and so I kind of watched his progression and just kept getting bigger and bigger and bigger every time I'd run into him. So, um, yeah, I was hoping. I think that's the guy who could have been easy top five
Oh,
Olympia and maybe
yeah.
even push for the title if things would have went different for him. But anyways,
Yeah, he's a good coach. I also worked briefly with for my last classic show with Alan Kress, and you guys are kind of in the
I
same
know
kind of
Alan.
field a little bit. Yeah, yeah. I was wondering if you
Yeah,
guys crossed each other's
yeah. I
path.
prepped Alan years ago,
Huh.
and he's from Kentucky, so
Yeah, yeah.
we used to definitely used to sit with each other at different shows, like when we would run into each other. Like Tricky Jackson, we'd always run into each other and kind of sit with each other and stuff. So I've known Alan for years. He's a good coach, and his career's really taken off as well, and he's done well. So
Yeah, I mean, like you said, both of you guys are kind of showing this is a good field if you can early adapt to it, and you guys both know your stuff.
yeah,
So, real quick, I just want to get into a little bit of your business stuff
yeah,
because that can be pretty interesting
yeah,
to people that are in the field, right? So it's like originally coaching was pretty much your income,
yeah.
right?
That
When
was
did you
right.
start the supplement line? You've had that for a while, right?
Oh man, I started 2017. So
Okay.
Vince Pitstick, who's one of my mentors in functional, kind of got me into it and said, "Well, here's why these people aren't working, and you need to go take this course, and I'll help you with this." And um, him and I sat down, and I have something called Feed for Function. It's our coaching portal that we use. So my ex-wife got us in a room, and we were supposed to just work on that. But him and I already had a little supplement company back then called Natty Nutrition. There was Slintrawl and Suppressed. And he's like, "Oh yeah, I'm using your Slintrawl with a lot of these functional cases." And I go, "Okay, well, tell me more." And then the whole conversation just pivoted from a diet platform to let's start a supplement line. And I still remember the conversation plain as day. What house I was living in and what room we were sitting in, and that's when it was born. And that was around 2017, I think, around November. And yeah, and then we were rocking and rolling since then. So what is that? About 6 years? 6 years. So that's how New Ethics formed, and we just wanted to have number one, we wanted to have third party testing. We wanted to pick the best ingredients so the products actually worked and you could feel them, and we wanted them to get outcomes. It really was just we started knowing that we each had a coaching company, and hey, if this never went anywhere, at least our clients would get good outcomes, which would make us look better and shine as coaches. And that did happen, but then other coaches started to catch on and use them, and then it just took off. And so it's been a great business for us. Um, so yeah, it's interesting. We just actually brought on a new partner, small minority owner now in our company, John Gorman. He owns Fat Muscle, but he's also been a longtime friend of mine and just a very loyal customer of the company, user of the company. And we thought it was a great fit. So I think he's going to open up some doors. So business is always interesting. I'll tell you that.
And
There's a
that's
lot of
international, or are you guys just in the U.S.?
what?
Is that
Oh, we're
international?
just in the U.S., but we
Just
actually just filed a trademark in China, or at least in I think it was China, and we're going to try to open up that. We tried to do Canada; it was very slow roll, and so it just never really went anywhere. But so we're mainly in the United States.
and then
Um,
you've got your we talked about your education
yep,
modules that
yep.
are
I got Scooby
really
U.
yeah. So how many of those do you have? You just have like one module at the
So
beginning
I
one, or do
have
you?
one course. It's that one's 15 modules, and you'll learn a system of how to work functional cases. You get all my forms. I got a gut form, a metabolic stress questionnaire, and a weight loss resistant questionnaire. You get all that, and then I teach you how do you work the system, and then I teach you how to do a 5R for gut cases. How do you read a GI map? I teach you how to fix amenorrhea in women. I teach you how to deal with menopausal women. I teach you how to handle PCOS, um, you name it. And many of the main issues I deal with, I teach you how to get a result. The courses, I think, 14.99, 15.99. It was a lot more expensive when I taught it live. It was 2,700 bucks.
Yeah.
But because it's not live, but I do have a cohort that's only 50 bucks. And it's on Mighty app, and that's where I answer their questions. So if they have questions, they can put it in there. It's only 50 bucks a month, and I give them full support. I get on every day and do a loom of each people's like issues and walk them through what to do if they're struggling. So there is
That's cool.
extra support there. And then Scooby U2 will launch in January. So
And you have coaches under you as well too, right?
I have about 16. Yeah,
Yeah.
and we're growing. We just grabbed 3 new, and we're always growing. If you're a coach out there and you're looking for a team, and kind of need that education piece, we do that very well. My basically my COO, Jane, grew her business rapidly into a very, very nice monthly number, and she works with them on the business side, how to maneuver IG to get more clients. She meets with them, and then I meet with them weekly and go over any cases that they're struggling in. They can enter their cases into a system, and then we all meet as a call, and I go over everything and how to tackle it. So there's a lot of support there. And I take one of the lowest amounts in the industry. I only take 30%. A lot of these teams take 50 or 60%
Yeah.
from you. And that's
And
hard to do.
you have your clinic too, right?
Yep. So we have our HRT clinic that started 2 years ago, and man, it is growing like rapid fire. We haven't even had to do any Instagram or Facebook marketing. We're probably adding 50 patients a month.
Where are you at now? Are you still in Kentucky or
So
in
we're
Florida?
all telehealth, but our brick and mortars in Cincinnati.
Okay.
So we have an NP there. So if you need to be seen local, so like if someone hits me up locally and they want to be seen because they just don't feel good about telehealth, some of the older patients
Yeah.
want to just that in person, they can go to the brick and mortar. But really, the rest of my NPs are all online and it's all telehealth. And our doc is licensed in all 50 states, so we can see anyone. And the Hyde Act just got extended again. And I think with Trump and president, it's not going to get messed with. I think telehealth is here to stay, even with the scheduled drugs like tests. They were talking about maybe you had to be seen in person, but I don't think that's going to happen now. So I think telehealth is here to stay. But all my NPs, I've trained them in functional nutrition as well. So it's not just, they know if someone has PCOS, how to find it. And, oh, well, you shouldn't be put on freaking testosterone. You got PCOS. Here's the lifestyle changes you got to make. Here's some of the herbals. Do that and then come back and then we'll get you going. So, our people are a little more educated. They know how to deal with long COVID. They know how colitis. So they work hand in hand. So a lot of coaches refer into us, and we have a little referral program for the coaches. If any coaches are listening and they need a clinic, just hit me up and I'll walk in, get you your own coordinator, and then you just refer right in. And we allow any coach who wants to sit on an appointment to do so. So some coaches do that as a learning tool. They learn how to
Yeah.
HRT should be scripted. They learn about LDNs. They learn about RAPA. They learn how to read labs. And so some coaches love that, and we allow that. So we really want a symbiotic relationship. I believe that the wave of the future is medical professionals trained and functional. Got to get to the root cause, not just always throw out medicines. And, we don't mind obviously scripting hormones, but let's make sure the body's in a place where it can take them first. So we're taking more of that approach than just your general hormone clinic that just hands it out or gives you pellets and sends you on your way. So I think that's the wave of the future, and that's what I'm trying to grow at our clinic. We're about to add genetic testing. I have one of my NPs going through a course. We'll have the testing in-house. So it's just been fun. It's been growing. It's something I have a big passion about. And more of my time will be spent there, I think, as the years pass. And I'm really, really excited for the future of it and what we can do in terms of medical care for people.
So you got a lot of, different awesome revenue streams.
Yeah.
What was your primary one at this point, would you say? Is it kind of
Ooh,
equal between a couple?
I think it's still Scooby, but AVH is very, very close. All the businesses are successful. All of them are 7-figure business. They all do very well, but Scooby probably is still the biggest going, because
And
I got that Scooby U plus the coaching plus all the coaches under me, so that's probably still the biggest.
nice. And are you planning on staying really active? Or are you taking any steps back from the coaching?
I currently have enough clients and I have a wait list. So I think what my future plan is this. I'd love to be more active in AVH. And what I would like to do, I know that I'll always coach, but I know at some point my roster will be about 30, and it'll be just the toughest cases. I want the people who the Western medicines failed them. I want the people whose guts won't heal. I want the people who have the weight loss resistance. And, I'll take about 30 and, I'll work a day on that. And then the rest of it will just be business meetings and moving my businesses forward. That's the ideal for me.
Yeah, I really wish like somebody like what's his name? Carlos Thomas Jr. One of these guys that have these stomach problems would link up with you, because
I wish they would too. But here's the
yeah.
thing. Never once have I jumped in someone's DMs and said, "Hey, you need to come work with me." It's not my style.
Yeah, yeah, I get it. But you're one of the lesser known, really good coaches, I would say, and
Yeah,
you've been around
I would say
forever.
too. Yep.
But is there any other coaches you would categorize as, being really good but maybe lesser known?
Gosh, there's a lot of good coaches out there, but I'll be honest with you, in this day and age, I try to spend the least amount of time on Instagram as I have to still support my business. So there's no one that I really can name, and plus I don't want anyone to get offended, with that title. But there's a lot of good coaches out there. I will say that, but there's a lot that I think if you're look in the neighborhood of hiring a coach, make sure they can handle everything you got going on. Some coaches are one trick pony and it's just prep, and they don't even want gen pop. So make sure you're investigating and asking the right questions.
So, what did you? Well, we'll switch real quick before I let you go. What did you think about Sebum? You saw him, I'm assuming.
Dude, I loved it. I mean, honestly, here's the thing. I'm a shape guy and I'm a detail guy. When they had him and Martin side by side, nothing against Martin, but my eye would go Sebum, Martin, and back to Sebum. I just had to keep looking at his physique and seeing all those nooks and crannies. To me, that's bodybuilding. I get it. They want to say bodybuilding is overall muscular, and if that's the way it went, that's the way it went. But I didn't think he gave that much up in the rear by, and I thought it looked better to me. I thought Martin was leaning back too much, and I just couldn't see as much detail. Martin's great, very bubbly. I just like a lot of detail. So for me, I thought, and I like the added fullness. Some people were like, "Oh, he should have brought what he brought to Classic." I think he brought the perfect package, and I think honestly, in my mind, he won. I just don't think the judges were gonna do that. I think it would have been a big upset, and I just don't think they were ready to make that call. But to me, my eye kept going C-Bum. What about you?
Yeah. I was online arguing with everybody because everybody was saying Sebum was winning, and I'm like, this is
You didn't think so?
bodybuilding. Well,
Huh?
the same way with you. Like, I mean, yeah, I would if I'm just judging what I think is best, then, but it's just like certain poses. It's kind of like the poses that Sebum won. Like, he won like half the poses, and I
Yeah.
would say like he won them by like a little bit. The couple poses that he lost, there's a little bit bigger discrepancy. Like the back lat, that was a pretty big way. And actually Chris looked way better in the back lat than I thought he would. But just the hamstrings, anything where you could see the 3D-ness, like a front double. Chris won that. You can't really see that, and even like a side chest. That's. But when
I kept going back to Chris. He's just got that nice tie-in at the glute that I
yeah.
like.
But the side
I don't know.
tricep, Martin was so big, and then they both
Yeah,
did the
he beat
they
him in the
both
side try.
they both did the crab most muscular together, and then that's when I was like, you can really see the difference. Chris shouldn't
Yeah.
have hit that with him, but yeah, I think that was
Chris
awesome.
might have looked better in like a hands-on hip to stay broader and showcase more here. And I agree with you. The crab probably wasn't the way to go, but I'm just
I
a
thought I
detail
thought
guy.
they were going to give it to him though. It looked like they
Yeah,
were. They fucked with
yeah,
everybody, kept him in
yeah.
the middle the whole
I'm just a
time.
detail guy. I feel like Martin could be drier. I don't know if it's just youngness
I think it was
or
really full. I think it was just
yeah,
super duper full, and
yeah.
he did have the really good striations in his legs. Like, honestly,
He does, but I feel
without that,
like
I might not have given it to
you
him.
don't see a sartorius. And Chris, you see all that detail, and I'm like, where's this sartorius at? Like, is he lean? Is he not lean? Is he holding water? I don't know. I was happy when he got fourth at the Olympia because I do think he's got a nice physique. I just my eye kept going to C-Bum, and I'll say that forever. But I think Chris is done. I mean, with his autoimmune condition, I doubt he wants to put any more weight on. And I bet Courtney would kill him at this point.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
I
it'd be
think he's done.
ridiculous.
But honestly, the smile on Chris's face, I think he felt no pressure and it was just fun again for him. And I think
Yeah.
that's a cool way to go out. I know he didn't get first, but he looked like he had a lot of fucking fun. And
And he's got a lot
I'm
of people saying he should have won too, that's a
yeah,
cool way to go out.
right. Yeah. So I think if he wanted to be an open bodybuilder, he could. I just think with his autoimmune condition, he's proved everything he needs to. And I don't know if you watched the Raw story that they have on Prime, but like he's pretty set up. They have a whole line built around him now. He's got a cult following. All these
Yeah.
young kids love him.
Oh
They all
yeah.
got mustaches and look terrible because they're not able to grow them.
Yes.
But
Uh, I love it.
they all look like molesters in my. I got
Yeah,
those little guys,
exactly.
and just I'm like, dude, you can't grow that thing. Cut that off. You ain't
That
C-Bum.
I know
But
that's Chris.
yeah, yeah.
That's funny. Well, man, I really appreciate your time. Is there anything else you want to put out there? Anything you think we missed at
Well,
all?
I'll just say this. First and foremost, thank you for your time and interviewing me. I always love to do these things. And then next, if anyone needs to contact me, I'm pretty accessible. I still do all my DMs and all that. So you can hit me up on Instagram. It's Jason Theobald, my name, underscore Scooby Health, or my email's jason@scoobyprep.com. So if you need me, and maybe you can put that in the show notes, you can hit me up on any of the stuff I got going on. If you need help with anything, need a clinic to refer into, any of that, just hit me up.
Awesome. Thank you so much, dude. I really appreciate your time.
Dame.
Awesome. Good talk, man. Have a good day.
You too.
All right. Bye-bye.